Okay, this video is going to be called What Makes a Painting Great? And so first of all, here's a masterpiece painting. Edmund Leighton, he's one of the disciples of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood of painters from the Victorian Renaissance in England in the 1800s. And the name of the painting is The Shadow. So he has to go off to sea, the boat is waiting, go off to fight, perhaps in the Crusades. And his lover, his wife, she's tracing the outline of his shadow on the wall so she can remember him while he's gone. Okay, and there's actually a little bit of ambiguity in this painting. You can see there's another shadow right here, and it looks like the indentations of the wall, but it also almost could look like, you know, another knight's helmet. So hopefully it's not that, but still it's a magnificent painting. And this idea of tracing one's lover's shadow to remember them by, you know, comes from an ancient Greek myth. I forget the name of the myth, but I've seen other paintings that mimic this storyline. But it's beautiful. It's magnificent. Edmund Leighton is one of the greatest painters, artists of all time. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to show you that example. I'll show you one more example, then I'll start getting a little bit into the theory, and then we'll do a bunch of comparisons. I think you're going to find this talk kind of fun. Okay, so here is The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli, the great Renaissance artist from the 1400s in Florence. He worked for the Medicis, the great patrons of art in the Italian Renaissance, and obviously it's magnificent from the Greek myth. You know, Athena born up from the foam on the water, and you know, being given a cloak, and it's just spectacular. It's spectacularly beautiful. You look at it and it just feels right, and you just like it. It's good. You don't even understand. Arete. You recognize excellence, and it's magnificent. Now, I want to show you another painting. And most students have never heard of this painting. All right, now I'm going to show you something else. Now, here's the Mona Lisa. Now, the Mona Lisa, by comparison, is a piece of crap. I mean, Mona Lisa looks like a big, ugly transvestite, and lots of people would want to put this on their dorm room. Lots of guys I know would have something like that on their dorm room of their college dorm fraternity room. Okay, nobody would want this on the dorm room. Why is Leonardo da Vinci so popular? Because he was an anti-Christian homosexual. Okay, he doesn't have one single good painting. His best painting is Last Supper, and it's no big deal. He's totally overrated. Yeah, he can draw pretty well. Whoop-de-doo. He's not in the same class as Botticelli, Michelangelo, Raphael, who produced all these masterpieces. It's just fake, modernized nonsense. Okay. So you need to know these things in order to be able to view art intelligently and get the most out of it. Because a lot of students become disillusioned. They look at all this nonsense, crappy artists like Da Vinci, Picasso, Kandinsky, and these other phonies, and then they think art stinks. But no, art's magnificent because you just need to see the great stuff. So, you know, what makes a painting great? The brief theory stuff is the topic is meaningful to the viewer. It's emotional, dramatic, memorable. The artistic skill of the painting, the realism. And the painter's sense of life, the joy in it, the appreciation of truth and goodness. Sometimes the topic has historical significance or literary significance from one of your favorite books. The painting tells a story that's, you know, meaningful to you. All those things contribute to a painting being great. You know, and now I'll show you some masterpieces, okay? So here's the first one, and this is the greatest painting of all time, The Creation of Adam by Michelangelo on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And basically the outer shroud blanket around God represents a brain. You can see here's the frontal lobe, here's the recessed temporal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe. He's bringing Eve to Adam, the touch of life, the spark of life. Man is created in the image of God, therefore he is part divine, therefore he's not like the other animals. There's something special about him, okay? And this has the greatest philosophical importance of any painting ever. Man is either created in the image of God and therefore part divine and special and deserving of natural rights, or he is simply a neo-Darwinistic would say a talking monkey. And I think this is both correct philosophically, aesthetically, and in every other way. Okay, next is Adam and Eve, okay? And you've heard my quote about how to be healthy. Just live like Adam and Eve, but keep your indoor heating and plumbing. That's the secret of health. All the articles, that's what they all say. Basically, do that. Okay, and this is beautiful. This is by Bruegel and Peter Paul Rubens. Magnificent, okay? You just see it, and you love it, and you remember it, and you're going to remember it the rest of your life. Okay, now here is a painting of Albert Bierstadt. He was a German-American painter, grew up was born in Germany, but then spent most of his life in America. He did go back train, I think in Dusseldorf. He also was part of the second generation of painters in the Hudson River School, like with Thomas Cole and whatnot. And this is among the Sierra Nevada mountains, like in the morning. And it's just beautiful. I think it's the most beautiful landscape painting ever made. I love this painting. I would want that on my room, in my dorm, in my house, in my office. If I was a rich man and I could just do whatever I wanted, I'd have this up on my wall. Okay. Now here is a painting of Cicero giving a speech in Rome, and it looks like he's denouncing Catiline, the Catiline conspiracy. Okay, a big famous Catiline conspiracy when Cicero was consul, and this really captures Rome. This would be like the center of everything in Rome. Cicero is the man in the center of everything in Rome. He lived during the Roman Republic. He lived during the transition into the empire. Okay, he lived amongst the time of the other major big players: Crassus, Julius Caesar, Octavian Caesar, okay, Pompey, Catiline, etc., etc. Okay, so Cicero's speech in Rome by Hans Smit is a masterpiece. And again, not as much for the painting technique, but just because this has overwhelming historical significance. Cicero is the most important of all the Romans, the greatest of all Romans, the center of everything Roman. If you want to study Rome, you should start by studying Cicero. That's the most important thing you can know about Rome, is that you should study Cicero, because he was the greatest orator of all time. And you will learn how to express yourself more effectively by studying his work and studying rhetoric. Okay, now here is a masterpiece called Descent from the Cross by Rogier van der Weyden. And you look at this painting, and at first it looks a little simple. Okay, they're taking Christ down from the cross. And he's kind of, turned sideways, and his mother Mary is also turned sideways. She seems to echo his posture. What's going on? Then you ask yourself, who funded this? The Archers Guild. His position is like in a bow and arrow, and so is hers. Okay, there's John, who shall now, be like her son and take care of her. Mary Magdalene weeping, okay. Joseph of Arimathea helping out. I mean, it's spectacular painting. It was done in 1435. This masterpiece was done in 1435. And extraordinary strong emotions one can feel upon gazing upon it. Okay? All right, now here is the School of Athens, which is also right behind me, the great painting by Raphael, 1511, in the Vatican, Stanza Segnatura, and it's syncretization of Roman Catholic Church. What that means is it takes up what it can learn from others and then adds it to its daily routine. So the Roman Catholic Church did not replace paganism. It sort of adopted it and incorporated it into itself. These are some of the major trunks. The trunks of the three big trunks feeding into Christianity are the Old Testament, the ancient Greeks, and the ancient Romans. Okay. Later on, the Celts, especially like in Ireland, for example, also Scotland and France, factored into their Christianity. But it's magnificent. There is Aristotle pointing up above to the perfect forms. Aristotle's pointing below, down to the earth. Be practical, pragmatic. He's a biologist. There's Plato pointing up to the sky, the perfect forms. There's Socrates talking to Alcibiades, Diogenes on the steps, Heraclitus, which is really Michelangelo, etc. It's just beautiful. It's magnificent. It shows that the Roman Catholic Church loves all the scientists and engineers and philosophers of ancient Greece. It's the one, all of the other, backward-ass barbarians, they didn't preserve anything. It was the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church monks preserved everything, preserved all the books from ancient Greece and Rome that they could in the early Christian writers. Okay. The Catholic Church goes back to Christ himself. That's why it's the best church, even though its current leadership stinks. Okay, now here is the Voyage of Life paintings by Thomas Cole. These are just masterpieces. I'm showing you these to give you a sense of the greatest art ever made by mankind. Okay, and this is Childhood by Thomas Cole. Okay, and it's like you can see coming out of the caves, like coming out of the birth canal, a time of abundance and splendor and wonder, and mama is right next to the baby and everything is joyous. Okay, here is Youth from the Voyage of Life, and the young man is off to seek his future, his utopian future up there in the sky. He's just going to head straight down this path and go right up to his magnificent future. But what he doesn't realize is there's a bend in the river, and then it starts going down this way, and it heads into the rapids that are quite rocky. And that's what real life is like for a lot of people, myself included. The glory days, the splendor in the grass of high school, and all of a sudden you're in the real world. And it ain't so easy. You got to work your tail off. Have fun when you can, but there's mostly work. All right, next one now is Middle Age from the Voyage of Life by Thomas Cole, the greatest series of paintings ever made. And here you see middle age gets rough. The guy gets divorced, he gets laid off from his job, he gets treated unfairly by somebody, and he's like, oh God, please help me, let's make this work. Okay, you can see the guardian angel still watching over him, but she's pretty far away right now. Okay, life is tough. So he's got to struggle while his boat's going over the rapids and the oars have fallen out of the boat. Not easy. And the next painting in the Voyage of Life is the tranquility of old age. Okay, now the guardian angel has come to him. She's ready to bring him back to his maker, to go up to heaven in the sky. He's at peace. The water is calm. Ain't nothing going on but the rent. So anyways, magnificent series of paintings. Thomas Cole also has another masterpiece series of paintings. The Age of Empire, Consummation of Empire. Those paintings are magnificent as well. I don't want him to sort of take over the show, so I'm not going to include those in this lecture, but if you love beautiful landscape paintings combined with, it's really the cycle of history, like Giambattista Vico, what those paintings embody. Okay. So here then is Sadak in search of the waters of forgetting. So here's Sadak climbing up the mountain to the top. And this, of course, reminds one of Prometheus in search of the fire, to steal it from Mount Olympus, to steal it from Zeus and give it to mankind. But it also represents any person working through obstacles as best they can with all the effort it takes to reach success in their field of endeavor. And now here's one of the most magnificent ceiling frescoes. I think it's the best one ever made. The Apotheosis of St. Ignatius by Andrea Pozzo, painted on a flat surface in 1690. Look at the incredible skill for creating three-dimensionality. This is on a flat surface. Okay, there's Apotheosis of St. Ignatius going up to heaven to be a saint. It's spectacular. It's like unimaginable that somebody can make something so good, so magnificent. That's how great these painters were. Okay, this is a stunning masterpiece. This is of a caliber of the Sistine Chapel ceiling. It's magnificent. Done in 1690. Okay, now here's a painting that I love. This comes from Goethe's Faust. And this is Professor Faust right at the beginning of the book. And he's sad. He feels like all his knowledge and learning was wasted, that he really doesn't know anything except a bunch of vocabulary. He's even thinking of bumping himself off and to drink this poison potion. And he looks out the window, and it's Easter Sunday. He hears the church bells ringing, and he sees the happy families going to Mass, and he remembers how happy he used to be, and he says to himself, I'm just stuck in this musty old library. I need to have some part of real life. I need to seek real life. What shall I do? And he decides not to go with the potion there. And then the whole adventure starts after that. And this painting is by Kraft, but it's still a magnificent painting. Reminds me of the song by Keith Green. Hear the bells ringing, they're singing that you can be born again, called Easter. The Easter song. Okay, now here is Lifeline by Winslow Homer. And this is how men see the world. We're always saving women's butts, and they're always yapping at us. But it's sort of the selfless hero. The man's face is covered, he's anonymous, and the boat has capsized, and now through this pulley system, they're saving the people on the boat. She's passed out, just getting a free ride. And once again, the guy saves the day, and he's not going to get any credit for it. But we still do it because we still love the women. Even though we love them more, we love women more than they love us. But paradoxically, they need us more than we need them. We can live quite well without them, but we just love them and like being with them. Here is Song of the Angels with Madonna and Child by William Bouguereau. And he's just a magnificent artist. It's just beautiful. It's heavenly. It's domestic bliss. Okay, now here's another one, which is kind of the same thing. Innocence by William Bouguereau. Okay, there's Madonna with the lamb and the child. The symbolism there, and men love that. Women are born to have babies and take care of them and raise them. Men are born to have wives and kids and provide and protect for them. It's just natural. Okay, it's just a fact. It's always been that way since the beginning of time. The last couple of years, people try to pretend it hasn't been that way. Okay, Mary Queen of Heaven with the angels, William Bouguereau, and it's just beautiful, spectacular. And there is no religion that gives more respect to women than the Catholic Church. Mary is the Queen of Heaven. Okay, you can't be any bigger than that. The Queen of Heaven. Look how beautiful it is. All right, now here is just, the masterpiece of Karl Bloch of Sermon on the Mount with Jesus Christu, the masterpiece of the Statue of Christ by Bernini right here. It's just spectacular. Here's a bunch of songs that go along with it, but I'm just showing you a couple more masterpieces, then we'll start talking about other levels of painting. This one is not so much a masterpiece for the artistic technique. The light of the world, Christ knocks, will you answer? There's no handle on the outside of the door. He knocks, but it's up to you whether or not you open the door to him. Okay, beautiful, by William Holman Hunt, another one of the pre-Raphaelite brotherhood of painters from the Victorian Renaissance in England. Okay, here is Meeting on the Turret Stairs. Again, another difficult goodbye as a knight must go off to fight to defend his country. And his woman, and him are saying goodbye. This is by an Irish painter, Frederick William Burton, and it's the most popular painting ever made by an Irish painter. And you can see why. It's beautiful. Because not only is it magnificently painting with realistic depiction of the figures, but you can feel their emotion. You can sense that you're in the picture saying goodbye, leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again. Okay, 500 miles, 500 miles. Okay, those are the songs of Peter, Paul, and Mary. It's just beautiful and sad. Anybody who's had a long-distance relationship gets this totally. Okay, and of course, here's Godspeed by Edmund Leighton. Okay, that's just another magnificent painting. He's the greatest of all the chivalry paintings ever, Edmund Leighton. Okay, I think that might be my last masterpiece. Oh, another one or two more masterpieces. Here is Big GW at Valley Forge by Arnold Freeberg. GW was praying, a very religious man. Most of the founding fathers were devout Christians. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Study the history books of David Barton, you'll learn the truth. Okay, that was well known. Here's another painting of GW, Crossing the Delaware. This one by the German-American artist Emanuel Lutz. And it's very bold and heroic and dramatic and beautiful. Here's the Last Judgment of Michelangelo. I actually had a version where I lightened it up a little bit, but it's still magnificent, extraordinary, incredible. Sistine Chapel. This was done later, though, in 1541. Came back to do that far wall. All right, so now great paintings. An example of a great painting by Anton Raphael Mengs. His father named him after Antonio Correggio and Raphael the painter. His father was a painter himself, and Ishmael Mengs, he wanted his son to be a painter, and he became a magnificent painter. He was considered the best painter in the world during his day in the mid to late 1700s. And here is his Adoration of the Shepherds, a real great masterpiece. It's beautiful. He would be in the neoclassical style, and this one is called The Gift of the Rosary by Giovanni Tiepolo, 1739. And you can see here is St. Dominic gifting a rosary to the people. But if you look more carefully at the painting, there's Mary, Queen of Heavens with the baby Christ, and he has a rosary that he hands off to an angel. The angel hands off the rosary to St. Dominic. St. Dominic was the founder of the Dominican order, in which Thomas Aquinas was a member as well. And then he hands it to the people. And you see down at the bottom, they have relatively earthly colors. And the human who starts their eye at the bottom zigzags on up towards St. Dominic, then the angels, then Mary and Christ, and all the way up into heaven. So, it's like a symbolic journey, this painting, as you go from the earthly colors to the more blue, the color of heaven, so to speak. And praying the rosary. It's a combination of a Baroque style and a Rococo type style. It's magnificent. Here's Diogenes. Okay, how can I find one honest man in Athens walking around with his lantern? By German painter Tischbein, student of Mengs. And then here is Bartolome Murillo's painting, Heavenly and Earthly Trinities. Look at the facial expressions on the Holy Family. And this is basically the earthly Holy Family. There's Mary, Jesus, and Joseph. And then here is the heavenly Holy Family with the Holy Spirit and God the Father up above. Okay? And just look at their faces. I mean, it's like magnificent. Sublime. It's a masterpiece, really. Okay, here's Hunter in the Snow. Everybody's seen this, and it reminds you after a long day going home in the snow, and it's beautiful. By Pieter Bruegel the Elder. And here is Caspar David Friedrich's painting, Wanderer Above the Fog. And it's called a Rückenfurger. You're looking from behind him as if you are in the painting as well, down out upon the valley, on the mist, on the fog, and one has the feeling of an objective point of view, a bird's eye view, if you will, like Six Blind Men and an elephant. You've now seen all the parts of the elephant, and you know you're looking at an elephant. Okay, here is The Monarch of the Glen by Edwin Landser, the great Scottish painter. And it's quite spectacular and beautiful. Here's The Eagle by Robert Bateman, the greatest nature artist who ever lived, American. Well, he's actually sort of Canadian painter. And it's just beautiful. It's a perfect eagle. And here's a very emotional painting, Anguish by August Friedrich Schenk. And one can see the sense of the baby being very sick or dead, and the crows are moving in to finish off the baby and maybe finish off the mama as well. And there's something very sad about this painting and something very contemporary about it. Okay, now here is Napoleon, by the great Jacques-Louis David, neoclassical painter, crossing the Alps. Okay. Here is Consummation of Empire. Remember I mentioned that series of paintings about empire by Thomas Cole? Here's The Height of Empire. You would say this is like America in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, before it went, okay, spectacular. Okay, now here's a painting by Jean-Léon Gérôme, thumbs down, and this is ancient Rome. So ancient Rome was brutal. Okay, ancient Rome is not like ancient Greek. Ancient Greeks made some mistakes, but they were 95% good, okay? But they did some real bad stuff, 5%, but they were mostly good. The Romans were brutal and cruel, okay? And, Edith Hamilton, the great writer about the ancient Greeks and Romans, said, the ancient Greeks had a joy of life. They played. They had Olympic games to compete. Ancient Roman gladiatorial games were not play. The fighters who lost, they would die, okay? So that's not playing. Rome was brutal. And back a few more paintings by Edmund Leighton, some of his great ones. The Accolade, the Dedication. They're just beautiful. Chivalry was very Christian. Middle Ages were very Christian. Okay, now here's paintings that are very good. They're not quite great because there's something a little off about them. So the first one is this one. And I do think it is a fantastic painting. And I probably could have put it in the category great, but it just doesn't have as much of a story. Even though it's spectacularly beautiful, it doesn't have as much of a story. You get a feeling of, the Cat Stevens song, Morning Has Broken. Okay, it's beautiful. All right, now the next one is Gothic Cathedral by Karl Schinkel, the German architect. And it's very beautiful, very nice. And he's an architect, so he gets all the details of the cathedral correct, which is spectacular. This story is Caspar David Friedrich, The Three Ages of Life. And what I like about this one is it shows, first of all, there's the children playing, watched by the mama. There's the papa, and they're together, the young couple, middle age. And then here's the old man looking out. And the boats kind of symbolize as well the ages of man. So, tells a good story, and it's a great painting. Here has A Joy of Life, The Ball, An Elegant Evening by Victor Gilbert. And there's a whole bunch of paintings like this. I think Wilhelm Gauss also had a bunch of beautiful paintings along these lines. The 1800s was the greatest age ever in history of painting. A couple more Edmund Leighton, Stitching the Standard Lady, The King and the Beggar Maid. So these aren't quite as spectacular as the other one because they don't draw out your emotions as extensively. But there are some kind of funny things here, Only a king would go for a beggar maid. A woman who was a queen would never go for a beggar man. That's just how it is. Women marry up. Men don't really care. They just pick the woman they want. They don't care where she is in the social status so much. Now, there's some exceptions to that, but in general. Okay, here is Maternity by Edmund Leighton. So, the mama is sitting here with her baby thinking, wouldn't my life be easy if I was just a nun? And the nun's sitting there thinking, oh, I wish I had a baby. Women always want what they can't have. That's just the nature. But it's a beautiful painting. Okay, here is young Mozart touring Europe to meet with all the royalty, and this is Madame Pompadour in France. Okay, the great prodigy Mozart and his father, who was a great musician. Here is Ophelia by John Everett Millais of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood of English Painters from 1852, and it's just a spectacular painting. And an actress laid in his bathtub. That's what he used as his model to paint it. And you could say, well, this should be, a masterpiece, but I'd say no, just because, I don't know, this subject, it's not worthy of being a masterpiece. It's still great. The realism of painting, the flowers, the tree, the water is spectacular, the woman. But I just, it's sort of macabre, the subject. It does go with the famous play, Hamlet. So it's great, but it's not a masterpiece, okay? That's how I would judge this one. Because it has to be something you want to see over and over again. If you don't want to see the painting over and over again, then there's something wrong about it. Now here's a painting where there's fantastic artistic technique, but the subject is kind of lame. So this is Anton von Werner, the German painter, showing when the Germans now had defeated the French in the Franco-Prussian War 1870, and they're occupying an aristocrat Fran's house. And so they're just kind of making a bit of a mess of the place, but it's like, okay, it's well painted, but who cares? So it's a good painting, but it can't be great because it doesn't have as good of a subject. Now here's where they got a great topic, but the technique is weak. So here's the Round Table of King Arthur, and that obviously has tremendous historical importance, literary importance. And it's such an important topic that even though the painting's a little bit juvenile in skill and technique level, it's still a really good painting for those reasons. Now here are things that I care about, but other people maybe don't care about. So these are paintings that are special for me, but other people might not be as enthusiastic for them. The Valley of Tears by Gustave Doré. It's only Christ that can lead us out of our misery, as was said by C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity. And the sad truth is the pros don't realize it, so the BS is going to continue. But there's the reality. Christ is the only way out. The Bible tells you how to live, how to be, and to follow the rules of Christ and the Ten Commandments, okay? That's what leads to a happy society. And if you don't have that, you're not going to have a happy society, and that's just how it is, and no other BS is going to change that. St. Peter preaching in the catacombs, and that's the way I see it too, is that the early Catholic Church was outside of the organized system and structure. And that's how it is nowadays too. The organized Catholic Church, the official version of it, is run by scumbags who want to destroy the church. The real Christians and Catholics, we really don't have any representation in the church, okay? The good priests and bishops and cardinals are all getting fired, and all the scumbags are increasing their control. Domini, quo vadis. So this is when St. Peter was fleeing Rome. He's got the keys to heaven there, fleeing Rome because of the persecution of Christians by Nero. And as he was leaving, he saw Christ, and he said, Domini, Lord, where are you going? Quo vadis. And the Lord said, because you have betrayed your people and you refuse to do your duty, I'm going back to Rome to be crucified again. And St. Peter said, okay, I'm sorry, God, I'll go back to Rome. And he did. He got crucified upside down. Here is the sacking of Rome. A great painting, and this is what happens when the barbarians are allowed to sack a city. They just destroy everything. They destroy the history. They destroy the art, the architecture. They're savages, okay? Let's be honest about it, and let's be honest about what's happening right now in Europe. Okay, here is Lost Illusions by Charles Gleyre, and this is totally how a guy feels during divorce. He sees his family being taken away from him, his house is taken away from him, and he's just sad. So the guy loves his woman and his kids. The woman loves her kids mostly, and hopefully she loves the guy, but a lot of them really don't, Anyways, a great painting. And the story it tells makes it better than its artistic technique entails. St. Thomas of Aquinas' vision of Christ, where he said, hey, Christ, I've done the best I can, but I'm sorry, I know I should have done better. And Christ's like, Thomas, you did fine. Here is a painting which, I just love Isaac Newton. He's one of my biggest mentors. I would consider my biggest mentors to be Aristotle, who summarized the valuable knowledge, Thomas Aquinas, unifier of faith and reason, and Isaac Newton. Just sit around on your own reading. You can just let me sit around on my own reading, and I can figure out all kinds of things that you can get 100 experts at any Ivy school, and they can't do it. I can do it by myself faster than all of them put together. But I need the time, and I have no sponsors, so it's really difficult for me. Anyways, this is when he went to his cottage in Woolsthorpe in 1665, Anno Mirabilis, the miracle year, where he figured out gravity, optics, laws of motion, invented calculus. It was a busy year. Okay, here is St. Elizabeth of Hungary, and it's just another reminder, painting by Edmund Leighton, the daughter of a king, but she chose to spend most of her time helping the poor. It's beautiful, and Christianity allows a person to do that, to just be themselves. Do something good, be whatever you want to be, but do something good. And that is open to you. Okay, here's Faded Laurels, the old bard just being ignored, ostracized, excluded. That's how I feel. As a low-fat fanatic, the true diet that heals people, not the other BS diets. Don Quixote in his library, another old guy who thinks he knows what's right and everybody ignores him. laughs at him, mocks him. The Spirit of Christmas, you know, the paintings by Thomas Kincaid are beautiful. You can call them kitsch, but you know what? We love this stuff. This was what my childhood was like. Christmas was the happiest day of the year. And we had fun. We would go ice skating. We would go sledding. Back in those days, everybody had big families. You would just knock on your friend's door. They all lived close together, and we would go. We'd go out and play. We didn't have to have our parents drive us for a play date. There were kids everywhere. Nowadays, everybody's only having 1 or 2 kids, and they got to drive half an hour for the kid to have a friend to play with. Okay, and here's a Knight of the Holy Grail. I just like it because I love the King Arthur legend. They're fantastic. So, you know, and this is Sir Galahad on his search for the Holy Grail. It's beautiful. Okay, here's paintings which I think are great because they're so unique. They maybe don't have as important of a story, but they're just great because they're unique. So here's Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jatte by George Seurat. It's at the Art Institute in Chicago. And it's just beautiful painting. And it's pleasant and it's nice and everybody's behaving. You know, in Roman Catholic France, people are nice to each other and they're behaved. They don't have any problems. In modern France, they don't have Christian values and they're not nice to each other, and you can't have a day like this. So you need Christian values so everybody's nice to everybody and you can have a peaceful time in society. Here's a painting that's a little bit bizarre. I like it. I think it's overrated, but I still like it. It almost looks like something a talented high school kid would do, but Starry, Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh is an interesting painting. Okay, I love the Grand Canal of Venice by Canaletto, and it's just unique. So one of those paintings, it stands out. There's nothing quite like that, and that makes it more interesting, and it's beautiful. Here's another version of a Canaletto. Okay, now some good paintings. I'll just show you one. So this is in the Gosau Valley of Austria by Adelbert Stifter. And you can see that it's a beautiful scene, it's peaceful, it's pleasant, but you notice, you look at it closely, the artistic skill, the realistic rendering, it's just not up to the same power as the other stuff. So this is pleasant, this is enjoyable, it's good enough to want it on your wall, but it's not good enough to consider great or a masterpiece, okay, in terms of judging painting quality. Okay, now here's a mediocre. So here's a Picasso of a lady. Okay, this is a piece of crap. It looks like something done by a high school student. Picasso was a crappy artist, okay? He's also like Da Vinci. He just gets promoted because he's anti-Christian, but he really has very little talent. Okay, now here's a painting that's completely fake. Here's a Kandinsky. This looks like something, a grade school kid did. It's nonsense. Modern art is fake. You need to be able to say that. That's why I see all these college professors pretending modern art is real, and that's why I don't have any respect for them. Okay, so anyways, I think that's my last painting. Let me confirm that. Yes, it is. I hope you found that helpful or interesting.